Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
And now, the stories you may not see on TV. It's time for another episode of All Politics Are Local with your host, Barry Dee.
I am back. This is All Politics Are Local, and I'm your host, Barry Dee, coming to you live from Westchester, Pennsylvania, in the heart of Chester County. That's right. I am back from Greece, and sitting in the studio today, I will tell you, producing the show from overseas is a ton of work, so I'm glad to be back where superstar Eric Clambera, producer extraordinaire, can shoulder more of the load. This guy is an absolute lifesaver. Eric, thank you. Thank you for being here and working with me, brother. Appreciate it. I got the nod. Once you get the nod from Eric, you know you've been accepted. I decided today that we need to go back to a simpler time, back before companies didn't have to worry so much about offending people. Everybody could laugh a little. Now, don't get me wrong. The world was still politically correct by 2000, and nobody thought it could get worse. But it's not like it is today, where people are afraid to say anything for fear it will be, and in air quotes, the wrong thing. So, Eric, let's cue up today's commercial of the day from the early 2000s.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real men of genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. Tiny Thong Bikini Wearer.
Mr. Tiny Thong Bikini Wearer.
Beachgoers the world over see you coming and say, hey, check out the woolly mammoth in the rubber band.
A giant woolly mammoth.
Defying the natural laws of physics, you managed to squeeze a 46-inch waist into a 30-inch suit.
Tight, tight, tighty, tight.
Like ground meat crammed into a sausage skin, you take to the beach and proudly strut your stuff.
Yeah!
If you've got it, flaunt it. That's your motto, which is ironic because you haven't got it. So crack open an ice cold Bud Light, sweet cheeks, and know that if you weren't wearing that suit, we'd ask you to take a bow.
Mr. Tiny Thong Bikini Wearer.
Bud Light beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
I love those commercials. They were first radio, and then they went into television, actually, and there's 150 of them. So plan on hearing more of those, maybe even on the morning show when I'm co-hosting with Eric. Let's do some housekeeping. This is going to be kind of a long monologue, so sit back, crack open whatever you want, and let's talk. My email box is devoid of candidates willing to come on and do an interview. Not all the candidates, only Democrat candidates. Now, before anyone jumps to the conclusion that I'm picking on Democrats, because I'm not, there were Republicans that took some time to come on the show, but eventually they did. Now, some had scheduling issues, but look, I've reached out many times, begged, pleaded. I even followed one down the street to try and get a commitment out of her, and I won't use her name, but her initials are Elizabeth Morrow. The Democrats just won't come on. I promise to give a fair interview. I always do. I warn all the candidates. Look, you lie to me, and I've told the Republicans this too. If I catch you, I'm going to call you on it. But there seems to this whole thing, it just seems to be a bigger thing than Chester County. It seems to be state and national in its problem. If you notice, the interviews with the Democrats seem to be kind of few and far between. And I understand the strategy, and it makes sense. Okay, this is All Politics Are Local, and I'm gonna explain it from my perspective. These guys are the winners. The left is on top. They got it. Okay, anything they say can and will be used against them, so it's better to say nothing at all. But the public deserves to hear your intent, your beliefs, and your history. Otherwise, we're voting on party alone, and that's very dangerous to be in that position. Look, you could do that with sports teams. I mean, Eric over here, he has his sports teams, and he'll cheer them on to the end. Even if they suck, he still supports them. Right, Eric? You know,
of course.
There you go. But in politics, well, politics runs your life. The Eagles do not, whether you like it or not. And by voting on those grounds alone, you are potentially doing harm to your own well-being. It takes time to do research. A biased media doesn't help. When the media writes articles that inject opinion, which is now most of them, your opinion is formed on somebody else's opinion. And that is even a bigger distortion of what the facts may or most likely are. Therefore, if the candidates keep their mouths shut, nobody knows what they really stand for, and let the voting end up on party lines. Then we all crash and burn. Your future depends upon good decision making, and most just aren't interested in taking the time to do that. I paid those people for that. Okay. Now the long part of the monologue. Be ready for this. I was called for jury duty. Thank you, Eric. Yes, I received a summons a couple months ago. That's really a guess because it's been a while and things just seem so long. I don't know. Look, I responded. I got it. I opened it up and went, hey, jury duty, cool. I'm not afraid of jury duty. Never served on a jury before. Opened it up. It was the Monday after I got back from Europe, from Greece. I was getting in late Friday night. Didn't know if the plane would be delayed. We had delays going over. Could have delays coming back. You know, airlines today, we don't know what was going to happen. And I knew I was going to be absolutely exhausted because I typically don't sleep for about 24 hours before I arrive back in the States. So, look, I didn't ask to be excused. I asked for a deferment. Just be pushed back a couple weeks. They turned me down. Now, I didn't realize it until I got off the plane at JFK. Of course, JFK, get in, 6 o'clock. Still going to drive back. Rush hour traffic in New York City. And I get this email that says, hey, be ready for Monday. I get back. I file for another deferment. It turns out I had no coverage over the weekend for my dad, who's 95 years old and requires 24-hour care. Now, look, he can move around and all that stuff, but there has to be with him at some time. There was no response over the weekend. This site claims that it's monitored regularly. Well, I guess it's monitored regularly between 9 and 5. I don't know. But it certainly wasn't monitored over the weekend. So I ended up pulling a 24-hour shift over the weekend watching out for my dad and reported for jury duty, where they told me they just sent me my second denial. Now, at this point, I've had 9 hours sleep in 4 days. That's an average of 2.25 hours sleep each day for the last 4 days. I was picked for jury selection. Okay, so that you go into the pool, and then there's like, I don't know, 100 and some people, or 70 people, or some, I don't know what's there. Then I get picked. There's like 40 of us that get picked, or 35 of us, to go in to then be interviewed to potentially be one of 12. So, you know, the way my luck goes, I can't win the lottery or anything. I'm like, with what they've got, with 12 people, it's actually 14 with the alternates. I got like a 1 in 3 chance, so I'm pretty good, right? I'm not going to win the jury duty. It's just not going to happen. I end up getting picked. I was so tired, I literally fell asleep during the jury instructions from the judge. I had to fight to keep awake. Now, this was a civil case. It was a car accident. It was one vehicle rear-ending another. After seeing the pictures, then I perked up because I have automotive body experience. I'm not talking shade tree automotive experience. I have, you know, a lot of time in the body world. I only do it for myself now, but there was a time I used to work on a lot of other people's cars, had a shop. This was a low-speed accident. Now, can I tell you exactly how slow? No, but the damage was minimal. At lunch, I went out to Carlino's across the street. Love that place, by the way. And I told them, shout out to Carlino's. Love their food. It's outstanding. Of course, the like $5.50 little iced tea I got kind of hurt, but whatever. Look, it's worth the food. It's great. But I got a Coke, or I got an iced tea, not a Coke. I got an iced tea, and I don't consume much caffeine, so I was able to stay awake for the day of the trial. And the next day I got a little bit more sleep, so I was better. Anyway, after the whole trial, we went into deliberation on this, and let me tell you, the jury we had were no slags, man. These people were all outstanding. Every one of the members was sharp and observant. There were engineers, there were teachers. It was all across the gamut, but every one of them was thinking. They all brought interesting components of observation, and none of them were afraid to speak their mind. They would step up. You know, once in a while you think there's going to be like a shrinking violet that just sits back and watches it all. Everybody had components to this that they wanted to talk about. I was very interested. You know, I personally had more questions than answers. There was evidence that was never brought up, like a picture of the front end of the defendant's vehicle. From the damage I saw from the other vehicle, I presume it's because there was no damage to the guy's truck. The plaintiff's SUV was totaled, but seeing the damage, it wasn't bad. The year of the vehicle was never mentioned in any testimony, which led me to believe that it was an older vehicle and wasn't worth repairing. The vehicle was towed away and there was an injury. Therefore, there had to be a police report, but it wasn't entered into evidence. After the trial, I did my own research. You can do that after the trial and after you've made your decision. Once you're free, the judge even said we were welcome to talk to the defendants and the plaintiff. We could talk to them and their lawyers. If they approached us, you could do it. Or if you wanted to go do something. I sought out some information afterwards. I found out that police reports are inadmissible. What? How's that possible? A little bit more details. Both parents were in the front, kids were in the rear and child seats. Only the passenger was hurt. The wife was hurt. The driver was not. The passenger had been in what sounded like a bad rear-end collision in 1998, which caused chronic pain until she bore children some 15 years later. Then the pain went away, and that was back with a very low-speed collision. Currently, most days her pain level was between 2 and 3. You know, there's commercials dedicated to the age group of 35 and up, pain relief from Blue Emu to Advil to etc. And we all have it as we get older. The injured party in the accident would have been 48 years old at the time of the accident. I had some questions. Some I took some heat from women in the jury, but some of them came around. One defended me right next to me. Was the woman menopausal that would lead to some of these issues? Did she have arthritis? We'll never know. There was no MRI that would have shown it. Look, I get pain. I was in a bad motorcycle accident and damaged my back a long time ago when I was in my early 20s. And it took over a decade using a good chiropractor, and I had to change my lifestyle, and I healed up. I also found that shoes helped, a lot of different things. And finally, I don't have bad sciatica anymore from it. But we all live in some degree of pain as we get older. There was no MRI done. There was no CAT scans. There was no ultrasounds. Both the chiro and the ortho that examined her said the pain was muscle-related, and there was some lower back term, and I can't remember it, and I apologize. But there were no injections and not even a massage therapist. It turns out I have the exact same neck problem they described of the plaintiff, and I've had it for months now, probably 6 months. I went to a massage therapist a few weeks ago, just before I traveled over to Greece, and my pain diminished by half in the first visit alone. Let me wrap this up. The first number the jury considered was almost $500,000, $475,000. Calculating a number through 80 years of age, I went ballistic. By the time we were done deliberating, the agreed amount was $150,000, $50,000 a year for 3 years to heal to a 2 to 3 pain threshold. She could be fully recovered in the next 6 months. We'll never know. I asked in the jury room why the spouse wasn't injured in the accident, and one juror looked right at me and said it eloquently. She's a teacher, and younger girl. And she said, younger woman, I should say, I'm sorry. She said, that vase was already cracked. This guy, meaning the defendant that rear-ended him, just broke it. And I think that sums it up. Do I think $150,000 was too much? That was the highest I would agree to, and I made that known at the beginning of the deliberation. And maybe I think it might be, but whatever, that's over. As for the husband, he wanted compensation for lack of companionship, more work put on him because of things she couldn't do that would cause her pain and fatigue, sexual relations, you know the deal. Look, I sympathize with him. I deal with it just like a lot of us do. There are circumstances out of our control. But in this case, he had someone to blame. The chiropractor, though, had a note from like 2015 or 17 that said the injured party had lower sex drive prior to the accident. Welcome to being over 40 and having kids in a full schedule. But again, I sympathize with the spouse, but there was nothing to prove that this was the case. I voted 0, as well as like 3 or 4 other members of the jury. The award for him started at $50,000, but it dropped to $25,000. By the way, in the instructions it said that if we awarded the plaintiff, his wife, he was entitled to compensation. They read that as we had to give him compensation. That's not what entitled means. Entitled means we could give it to, he could get it if we wanted to give it to him. He wasn't entitled to it if we didn't award her. So once I made that definition, all of a sudden things changed with people. So it dropped to $25,000 to try and sweeten the pot, and I held out. But eventually, there were people that just ended up realizing the futility of the situation because other people had anchored in. They'd already come from $50,000. Somebody had said, "Look, I'll give 4 or 5," and it takes 10 of the 12 to make a decision, and it finally happened. And I don't blame the last people that gave in, but that's how that $25,000 decision was finally made. 3+ hours of deliberation just wears people down. Me and one person across the way from me, I called her Poker Face because she was a tough woman. She wasn't giving in on that either. She wasn't giving anything. So look, there's time to wrap this up. Had I been on my A game, running on no sleep, but the way I was, I probably would have even fought harder for the defendant because this accident was clearly less jarring to the body than several different amusement park rides, or say skiing, which is something the plaintiff testified to doing after the accident while she was still seeking treatment. She said it was unbearable. She had to go down to the ski lodge. Well, you shouldn't have been doing it. Our bodies don't get better if you keep knocking it out of whack. So the moral of the story is, first, the jury selection people don't care what mental condition is of the people they picked to be in the pool. I clearly was exhausted, but brought myself back, and then the second day I got a little bit more rest, so I was more on my A game. But to them, sleep deprivation is not an issue. Didn't care. Second, if you pick a radio personality to be on a jury, don't be surprised when the experience gets broadcast. Thank you, Eric. Let's take a break and come back with Carla from Chester County Ramblings.
Barry Dee is back with All Politics Are Local.
I am back, and it's that time of the show. We don't have Jack on this week. Jack is traveling. He promises me he'll be back next week, but this week we have Carla, so it's Chester County Ramblings with Carla. So hit that theme music.
Hello world, here's a song that we sing.
Carla, you with me?
I am.
How are you?
I am well, and since we spoke, I have super breaking news.
Go ahead.
Okay, Debbie Bookman, the Chester County Personatary, has abruptly resigned.
What?
On the website, it says Kristen Hume is acting Personatary.
No way.
Sources say that there may be quite a bit to this story, which is potentially shocking.
Wow.
Euclid Township community page outed this, and then someone I know verified it, but the Daily Local got it yesterday, but they didn't report on it.
They sat on it? What? What's up with that? That's why we're here, right? That's why you and I are here.
Well, but this is a big deal. This is County Row.
Right. Absolutely it is. Absolutely. Wow.
And before I get into the rest of it, I have a little shout-out to the Moms for Liberty, and they are the ultimate Chester County queens of cancel culture, and they have launched a full-on attack against me. I don't know why. I don't really care. I guess my gas mask is still at the dry cleaners. Ladies, bless your heart. Knock yourselves out. Now.
This is, by the way, an ongoing battle, but...
It's not even a battle. I don't even pay attention to them half the time. And it's like when I don't, they crave attention.
It's... Wow, it's...
Well, I'm sorry
you and Shannon. You and Shannon.
Blonde, the bottom layer looking like it got stuck in the French dip cup of the French dip sandwich platter. So, I mean, whatever.
And moving on, Carla's other news.
Okay, I was originally opening my segment with this somber news, and I still want to talk about it. A woman from Chester Springs was tragically killed in a small plane crash in Southern California a few days ago. I believe it was October 11th.
Oh, yeah.
It crashed shortly after takeoff into a ravine on Catalina Island.
Yeah.
The pilot, per West Coast media reports, did not have permission to take off in the dark. And as you and I discussed, this airport is referred to by some in Catalina as Airport in the Sky because it's 1,600 feet above sea level and only operates from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and prohibits any flight activity in or out of the airport after sunset.
It's a tricky one. Let me tell you that you have a lot of crosswind problems. You have a lot of issues with the sea breezes. It's a tricky airport. It's not something for the faint of heart. I will tell you that. No,
and this lady Peggy, who and I'm embarrassed. I just lost her last name. Fenner.
Okay.
This lady Peggy Fenner. I did not, know her personally. She lived a bicoastal life and was described by friends of mine who knew her as just super cool and nice and helpful and kind. I knew her as the lady who was restoring the cool old gatehouse on Yellow Springs Road, which took like 4 years to get permits for because West Pikeland is always West Pikeland.
Yeah, what's up with that? Somebody's trying to restore a historic little building. It's awesome. The
restoration is spectacular, and my sincere condolences go to her husband, children, and other loved ones and friends, and shame on the Philadelphia media for not carrying this story and celebrating this lady.
Yeah, heartbreaking.
And she was not the pilot, by the way, although she flew.
Yes.
But, she worked for NASA.
Right.
At one point. I mean, those are, the really super cool women you just want to know.
Yeah, you just want to meet them. You want to be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with them and just talk about them. Talk to them and find out about them, It's that type of thing. You can't be a dummy and be at NASA.
So, next we go to East Whiteland, where between the township and Mount Zion AME church folks in Devon, money has been earmarked and pledged to finally cap and stabilize the ruin of Ebenezer AME Church, which dates to the 1830s on Backton Hill Road.
Now, I got to tell you, tell the audience, actually, I have followed this story since you broke those ruins because I never knew what they were. I thought it was an old barn. And when you broke that story, almost a decade ago, I was amazed.
2013.
And now I can't drive by them without staring at them. And I'm absolutely amazed at the fact that there were Civil War graves on that site.
It is. It is absolutely amazing. And literally 8 years ago this week, my husband and I commissioned a structural engineer with a passion for old structures to study the outside of the ruin and give us a written report, which I turned over to East Whiteland, etc. Because you can't go inside it. It's very unstable. Ebenezer is in what was once an early black Chester County community settlement known as Backton Hill. It had the possibility of becoming a historic district decades ago, but it never happened. And last year, a historical marker was unveiled, and the latest news gives me hope that this place will survive and be remembered.
Excuse me, madam, you have a new...
And, sorry, the graveyard has Civil War soldiers in it and freed slaves and all sorts of cool stuff. And there are people in that cemetery who have ancestors in the Malvern area and Chester County today. And, yes, as we've discussed, I've been relentlessly nagging and writing about this site since 2013. I can't explain that other than when I discovered what it really was, the place touched me. Now... Also last week,
I know that guy.
It's my message butler.
Yeah.
So message butler's going to take a nap. Last week I had a conversation with Chrissy Houlihan's chief of staff about the Airport Road Westchester Post Office location.
Well, at least they'll talk to you.
Fire weeks ago.
They won't talk to me, so good thing they talk to you.
Well, I'm persistent.
You are.
No reopening is happening anytime soon, and that's in part because USPS itself owns the site. They don't own all their sites, by the way.
Right.
But fire scenes, as most people do not know how long fire scenes take forever with insurers and everything. And the building is also not structurally safe right now, and it's somewhat of a nasty, toxic party inside. And USPS controls the whole enchilada. So that leaves everyone kind of stuck in spite of so many public officials from federal, state, and local begging them to deal with this, because it's not just the Airport Road post office. It's a big distribution hub, and it affects all of our mail.
I'm sure there's industrial parks that have an open building that they could move into temporarily for 2 or 3 years.
But it's getting USPS to say they'll do it.
Right.
And they don't have to.
Right.
That is the problem with the system of USPS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know people have been asking. I mean, because I had mail. Reason I started calling is I had a package that was coming from I forget where and went to Utah, went to Chicago. Mm-hmm. It went to Harrisburg. It went to Philadelphia a couple of times. It was in New Jersey. It was in Wilmington. I mean, it literally traveled around like 14 days before it reached me.
You ordered a traveling gnome?
I did, but oh my God, he was rotten when he arrived. It was a perishable product.
Oh, no.
Product. Yeah.
Not even good for jam.
No. Now for the last word.
Yeah.
New business model
2 minutes. You got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Essentially a pumpkin concierge service.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. If you're incapable of placing a couple of pumpkins here and there, for a few $100, you can have your home look like it vomited dozens of pumpkins.
Oh,
we all know it's stressful to do anything ourselves these days. So coast to coast, these businesses are popping up. Mm-hmm. The smart ones offer a removal service, which is a great idea.
Right.
The average HOA dweller and HOA itself won't like them left all over if they let you put that many out in the first place, because some of them don't even let you put out potted plants.
Right.
My problem is not trying to diss a small business per se, but part of the joy of any holiday is the heart and effort you put into it.
That's true.
And sorry, not sorry, pumpkin placement doesn't count.
Well, there are people that want the joy but don't have the time. They're very busy.
Nobody's that busy.
No.
I mean, how can you have Halloween without going to pick out pumpkins with your kids?
You know what? I wouldn't have time to pick out a pumpkin. I don't have 5 minutes to myself anymore.
Well, that's because you're not normal with that. You have the craziest schedule of most people I know.
That's true.
Which is why when elected officials say they don't have time for you, I'm like, God, he makes time in his day for all of us.
I may be super, but I'm no hero.
No, you're just my friend back.
Carla, let me let you go. We got to go to a commercial break, and as usual, it's a joy to talk to you, and hopefully next week you'll be back on the air with us.
I will.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, honey.
Let's hit a commercial or two so we can pay Eric's salary here, and we'll be back after this to talk about Oxford Borough Police. Will they exist in a little while or not?
Barry Dee is back with All Politics Are Local.
That's right. I am back, J-Bo Jones, and we are into the second half of All Politics Are Local with Barry Dee. I am your host, Barry Dee. Next segment here, dedicated the second half to a situation where the Oxford police may disappear. So I have a couple people, one on the line and one in studio, to talk about this. So we got some music for you guys to start this segment. There you go. That was the theme from the TV show Emergency. John, you remember that show?
A little bit, yeah.
1972 through 77, 5-year run. Yeah, that was it. It was a very popular show. So I have John in studio with me and Danny on the line, and these two guys are fighting to save the Oxford Borough Police Department. I'm going to guess they're going to enlighten us a little bit on this. I'm guessing due to budget constraints or something like that. Police departments are very expensive. I mean, you know, with the average salary of a police officer and all that, a few years ago, it typically ran $100,000. But you add in equipment and all that, you can be well over $100,000 per police officer. That's a tax burden on the municipality. So you end up into choices. Do you go state police? Do you go regionalized? Do you continue with the borough police? Do cutbacks? How does it work? And you know the answer to that? Neither do I. I can tell you that. I have no idea. What I can tell you is these guys are here to tell us what's going on. And by the way, they brought me in a great shirt. I'm showing it to the camera right now. It's the Save Oxford Police t-shirt, and I thank the both of them for that. This is very cool. So, John, Danny, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, Barry. How are you doing?
Oh, doing great. Why don't we start with John, since I spoke with John first originally about this. Bring us up to speed on how you ended up getting involved in this whole thing. And Danny, at any time, you can also step in and talk if you want. And if you don't know the answer to it, let John do it. John, if you don't know, handle it from there.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes. My wife and I, Missy, we both started this in about 2 months ago. We saw some posts on Facebook on the Oxford message board, and there was talk about their possibility of problems with the Oxford police, problems of being able to retain them, funding and whatnot. And so we wanted to check into this, see what it was about. Danny lives in the borough. Myself and Missy, we live just outside the borough, 4 houses outside the borough.
So a couple 100 feet.
Yeah, right, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so we did I spent about a week calling different people and talking to people, just verifying if this was really true. And everything came up, yes, there was a talk in the borough council about they're looking into things to do with the police. Primarily, as nowadays everything hinges on money. And
this was discussed in borough meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the borough meetings is run by the borough council. And so what we did is just on a whim, I went out and dropped some money and bought 300 T-shirts.
Of which one of them is now mine.
Yes. And put them in the back of my antique car. I have a 59 Oldsmobile station wagon.
Nice.
And went to our first Friday in September, our car show. They shut down the whole...
Oh, it's a great event.
Yeah.
Great event.
And I set up a canopy on the sidewalk and kind of passed out T-shirts, got some reimbursed for it.
Nice.
And we made up some flyers and just trying to get the word out there so people would know that something's cooking and they need to get, if they're interested in retaining the Oxford Borough Police, to get involved.
This makes you an activist, John.
Yeah, in my old age, I'm an activist.
Yeah, the first night that we got actually noticed by the borough council of what we were doing, and that we were out there. Most of them had absolutely no idea that we were going to be standing up against this.
Really? Wow. Well, a lot of this stuff, Danny, goes by because people aren't aware, right? So it just slips through, and then when it happens, it's too late. You guys prevented that.
That was the whole purpose of me.
That's what our hope is. Yeah, John's right. That's what our hope is.
That's outstanding.
So yeah, at the very least, it's out there. The council knows that we know. We go to the council meetings with our shirts, and we get more people each meeting, and so they know they can't. Nothing can be just snuck in here on us. So what the final outcome? That's the next part of the equation.
Okay.
So, well, the first thing we did was we made up a flyer. That's what we gave out the first our first meeting there at the show, and it was just basically kind of ask yourself, what does our police department do for us? And one of the first thing we have on our flyer was, most of the time, like 90% of the time, the police are the first responders to medical emergencies.
Yes.
If they're not there, well, that's going to be a serious thing. Another thing is, last summer in 23, we had a big fire in town, in the borough, and the police went in the burning building and got about 60 residents out of their apartments before the firefighters even got there.
They went into the burning building.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, they were
out.
actually the ones that saw the building on fire before anybody else, or call was made to 911. And 2 police officers, Officer DeMedio and Officer Williams, both went in, and buildings collapsing and fully engulfed, and they got every single one of them residents out of those buildings and down on the street safe before the fire trucks even arrived.
God bless those guys. That's awesome. Love hearing that.
Yeah. They also do things like they set up the monitors in town for activities like the first Friday car show, things like that. And there's a lot of things. They last year they responded to 7,000 calls, whereas in for a borough only, that's a lot of calls. So
that's a lot of calls.
Yeah,
it's a lot of calls. Oxford's a good size.
As of as of September, they were over 3,000 calls already.
Wow. Well, I will tell you that Oxford, in my research, is a nice-sized borough. It's got about 5,500 people in it, 5,800 people. It's 2 square miles, so it's a substantial size, which means there's a lot of pavement there. I have been down there for your first Fridays. I have seen the downtown, and I had never really spent time, like kind of on the outskirts where the shopping center is, Dunkin' Donuts, that type of thing. And I don't know if that's actually part of the borough or not, but I know the downtown and all that. It's a very nice place. It is dense. It's a lot of people in a little area.
Right.
And, you're going to have a lot of things going on. Streets, alleys, weird intersections, things like that. And you need fast response time.
Right. And that's one of the important things is we have actually a very top-notch force. Very nice people, knowledgeable. They know the area. They know the people. Plus or minus, whether they're nice or people you don't want to know.
Oh, no, it's Mayberry, man. People know people.
Yeah, and so that's very important in keeping a place like that calm and peaceful and nice to go, nice place to be.
And that's what a lot of police departments really count on is the respect of the community and the police officers working together.
The relationships. Right,
to help with things if ever help is needed for certain situations.
Yep, you got to have each other's back, right?
Exactly.
Yep. So go ahead.
So, we also started a Facebook page. Real simple. Save Oxford Police.
Nice.
And Danny and his son Justin are really key in keeping that going since Missy and I don't have a whole lot of time. And that's been very key in getting the word out there and communicating with people, even about our being on the show today. And it comes down to they're looking at 3 possibilities.
Okay, so you got options.
Yes, 3 options. Yep. The first one is just disband the borough police and rely on the state police, which the several surrounding townships do now. That's really, and especially in a dense, like you said, a densely populated area, a lot of population, that's not a good scenario. And I would almost guarantee that if that were to happen, then the option 2, the state would step in and start their own regional police with the surrounding townships, which would be better than option 1. But again, the state getting involved in something like that, and it's going to have a so-so outcome. The third one is what we're really pushing for, is if we get voluntarily the 5 surrounding townships involved with the borough, and we make our own Oxford area regional police with the borough as the hub. And then I think we're going to have the best outcome for all the people involved, all of the townships.
And you're thinking about joining with a couple townships, like townships that touch.
Yes, well, there's, we have several townships that are, all touch it.
I'll tell you what, you look that up. We're going to go to a commercial because we got to pay bills to keep you guys on the air to talk about this.
Good enough.
And we'll be back in 3 minutes.
Barry Dee is back with All Politics Are Local.
And we are back with John Rogers and Danny Graham and the Save Oxford Police, a noble cause for a noble group of men and women down there in Oxford, keeping that borough safe in southern Chester County. Okay, John, you're back on. Let's talk about the surrounding townships and what you would see as service potentially.
Sure. Okay. Well, there's Upper Oxford, Lower Oxford, East Nottingham, West Nottingham, and Elk Township. They are all 5 townships that surround the borough. None of them have their own police. I think West Nottingham has a part-time police. I don't really know what that does. Maybe they only have part-time crime.
Yeah.
So you can see they're already depending on state police only, and to add the population of the borough in there, that's just not gonna go well.
Right. In the speculation on that, has there been any response that you know of to these surrounding townships? Obviously, they don't have police departments now, and they depend upon state police, which it goes a long way. I mean, look, I can tell you, I've seen this before. I saw East Brandywine became like a large regional police. We'll go back further than that. Euclid and Upper Euclid, regional police in the 60s and 70s. My father was a supervisor in Upper Euclid Township, and I asked him one time, I said, why doesn't Upper Euclid have its own police department? It was a small township at the time. It's gone through expansive growth. And he said, do you know the job of a police department? And I said, sure, to protect and to preserve. He said, and he was a supervisor. He said, no, to get bigger. So some people see it as an expense that just, like all government offices, gets bigger. Sure. And the danger of that is that it does get bigger, and it starts to eat a lot of tax money. So there's always a fear of that.
I think that's the predominant fear of the other townships, right, is money.
Well, the minute you do that,
that's probably one of the bigger fears that they have, and being so, I guess you say, early in this, it's kind of hard to, even come up with, that kind of information until things are put together.
Right.
And then, then they can, have something to look at to say, hey, if we do, the regional, it'll, we may charge this or tax this, or we may not. Mm-hmm. At this point, there is that kind of is up in the air, that they, don't have any decisions on that as of now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, this all takes time. Look, studies like this take sometimes years to really flesh out where you can actually do something. So Euclid and Upper Euclid ended up splitting in the 80s, and Upper Euclid ended up with its own, just simply because they wanted more coverage, and my dad also was no longer supervisor, and he kind of held up the works on that. And it has grown, and it's a big force now, and they have a lot more to deal with. I mean, Euclid Township's got to have 13,000 people in it. It's got a lot. So the monster of all of them in Chester County was the East Brandywine Police. They covered a huge area. It was called the East Brandywine Regional Police, and they covered all sorts of places, West Brandywine and all these different townships and all that. And their problem was, as I know it, and anybody is welcome to send me an email and tell me where I'm wrong, their expansion, they started to get really big and decided to build big buildings and this, that, and the other thing. And Wallace Township came to him and said, listen, we cannot afford what you want now. We've got X amount of dollars we can give you. Now, you have to either cut back on some of our service, we'll figure that out, but we can't go to what you want. And I think it was $1 million, and they said, look, we have $800,000 we can do in the budget. And they held fast. So Wallace voted it down, and therein the collapse started of the East Brandywine Regional Force, because they had bitten off so much that they became demanding. And then the final thing that I have seen in regionalizing, and these are all dangers and pitfalls. I'm not saying it's bad that a regional force. What I'm saying is you just have to watch them. Is that it gets run by one municipality, and because the others are satellites, the other townships or municipalities start to feel they're not being listened to, or they're getting shortchanged, or they're being demanded of more money and not getting what they should. And so it becomes a precarious partnership. All of that can be worked through if people want to do it. You have the right people in there, and regionalization can be very good. I'm just saying that those are the pitfalls that you guys will probably fall into.
Well, that's kind of the key, is why we're pushing this now voluntarily.
Absolutely.
With these other townships. I mean, the first thing is, like, since Missy and I go to the East Nottingham township meetings, the first reaction is, oh, no, that's more money. But we're also looking at is in the surrounding Oxford area, there's at least 4 farms being developed for residential right now, probably a few more. And so
all
that's
that infrastructure.
That's all more taxes coming in. What are you giving these people for their tax dollar? And it's something that if they're going to expand, they need to step up to the plate and give these people something for it.
Yeah, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, and exactly. You're talking about Nottingham. All right, Nottingham itself, and I've lived in, this area, most of my life, but Nottingham itself is pushing, 10,000 plus residents already.
How many?
About 10,000 plus.
I did not realize that township had grown that much.
Yeah.
It has grown that much, and they have no local police department that, can be there for them. They have to rely on state police.
West Vincent has about 5,500, and I think they have 10 cops. 5,500 people, which I think is too many. No offense, West Vincent. I think it's too many. I don't know what the right number is. I would probably guess closer to 6, but that's me because we have no industrialized area and a very tiny commercial area, but that's just me, okay? But when you have that many in Nottingham Township, depending upon state police is just too difficult.
Well, and that's another thing. If we start working on it now as a collective group to do it, that would save the possibility of the state just saying, hey, this area is just way too big. We're going to start a regional, and then you're stuck with whatever they give you.
You don't want to be stuck with what central planning does. And central planning doesn't work.
The thing is, we all got to, all the townships, have got to work together as one collective unit.
Well, it's about the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens.
Yeah, and that's the hard part of this is getting them, to work together and agree, and then stop a possible state-run police department where this is what we're going to give you. Exactly.
And no police department is not an option. It's just not.
No, it's really not. The crime will soar. Even if the borough loses its police, the crime will soar in the borough, and it will expand out into the other townships. And I don't think they see that.
I mean, most of them will have, they'll know they'll have at least 15, 20 minutes, before a police officer could be on scene, and that's if another officer from another department is not already in town. That's a hit and miss, but most of the people out there causing problems know they got this much time before anybody there, and they could be off.
Well, let me tell you something. With our court system the way it is, you go to defend yourself, the next thing you know, you're doing 10 to 20 because somebody came and broke into your house. And
exactly.
And then even if you are found not guilty, you're also $500,000 in debt. You've had to sell your house, and you live in an apartment after that the rest of your life because you just don't have the money. Listen, guys, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys alerting me to this. This has been fascinating, and I am here for you as you come up with more information. I can either report on it, or I'm actually going to be contacting your borough and sending out emails to the police chief as well as the mayor and the council people to see if anybody wants to come on and talk more about this issue, because talking hopefully gets all the information out there to make the best decision for, again, the health, safety, and welfare of your community.
I got one last closing thing here. Just want to, anybody wants to get involved, it's all about passing the word around, getting support so people know what's going on, and we are not favoring any one political party over another. This is not about the politics going on. This is about our Oxford area and keeping it safe and comfortable the way we've always had it.
Totally the way I understood it. And Danny, anything out of you?
Yeah, that I agree with John. Safety and protection of all the residents, in Oxford and the surrounding community is, top-notch number one. Regardless, we would like everybody to, step up, help us out, become a member, look at your police department, everything that they, do for our community, keeping us safe, and,
buy a shirt.
And, we got to step up and
buy a shirt,
or we're going to lose them.
There you go. Hey, listen, I'd like to thank my guest today, John Rogers, and his lovely significant other, Missy, who supports everything that's going on, as well as Danny Graham and Sherry, his lovely wife or significant other, for being here and standing up. Look, I need you people to come to me with this. That's anybody who's listening to me. I can get this stuff out there. We can talk about it. We can make people aware. That's why I'm here. I'd like to thank Westchester's legendary Eric Clambera for making this show go off without many hitches. He lost a poker game, and he has to work with me, and it wouldn't have been so bad, but he went double or nothing and lost again. Thanks again to that whirling dervish of a radio station general manager, Donna Saul. She is the only person I know that can be in 3 places at one time, and I'm still in the air thanks to her, and that's probably because my performance here at the station piques her curiosity from week to week, and she doesn't know what to make of it. Make sure you share my show with your people in your community, just like these guys did. They need to know what's happening in Chester County, too. While you're at it, call those candidates and elected officials and ask them why they haven't come on my show. Then let me know, because they won't talk to me. And speaking of listeners, if you like my show, take the time to send a nice note to WCHE at WCHE1520.com. If you don't like the show, next week might have something that will interest you. Much like my dating career, I know it's me, not you. Be sure to like and follow the WCHE Facebook page, where you can keep up on all that's happening around town and the county. You can also see updates and videos on both my Facebook page, including the show. I have the camera in the studio here. You'll be able to see us talking on the video, and you can see that at WCHE All Politics Are Local with Barry Dee, the Facebook page, and my YouTube channel, All Politics Are Local with Barry Dee. Today's music was supplied from the Babies with lead singer John Waite. The song is Midnight Rendezvous, and in 1980 it hit number 72 on the Billboard Hot 100. I am scheduled to see him at Penn's Peak on Saturday night, but he just canceled and rescheduled him for April 25, 2025. And the final advice of the day: if you go with the flow, you may just get washed downstream. Consider the evidence presented, and then consider why some evidence isn't presented at all. I'm Barry Dee for All Politics Are Local on WCHE, live back here in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I'll be back next week with another show with the talented Eric Clambera. Thank you for listening.